More internet. Melanated family. How's everybody doing, man? We back for another week. Me and my sister Sonia Williams Lewis here for another rendition of the Melanated Convo podcast. It's been a minute. Both of us been busy, had a lot of stuff going on. You know what I mean? But we back for the family, man. So Sonia, how you been doing? Say hi to everybody. I haven't seen you in a while. How you doing, sister?
No, I'm so excited to be back, trying to get back onto routine. It's always a challenge when you travel, but it's
Yeah.
always a blessing to be able to step away. If my voice sounds a little different this week, I'm recovering from partying, hardy, and celebrating like life and milestones. But I had a graduate yesterday who graduated high school, so I
Oh.
got double trouble on this voice because I'm a screamer. I'm one of those. I'm that mama in the. I'm that mama. Yes,
Yeah, because my
she is
homeboy,
high.
his daughter just graduated fifth grade, and he called me. He was like, "Man, our people would trip, bro." And I was like, "What you mean?" He's like, "Yeah, at the graduation, man, everybody they was graduating from fifth grade. You would have thought they was graduating college. The way the black parents sound."
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. But
Yeah,
I
so
think
that's
that that's important. I think it's important that we set an expectation and a standard in our children's minds how much we want them to succeed and that
mm,
their efforts are not just seen but that we celebrate them and I mean like little things. My kids know we give high fives when report cards come out. We do affirmations in the morning before they go get out the car.
mm.
We doing the regular check-ins, but when they do something like winning a track meet, a spelling bee, anything, my mom, my dad were always very vigilant about celebrating everything I did, and I that's something as a parent that I have taken with me to make sure that they feel like they're important.
I get that. I get that. Okay, I get it. So it's like celebrating the small wins, which can help build somebody up to be prepared for the big ones. Like
Absolutely.
all of these steps are important. I get you. I get you.
Yes,
I get you.
every step gets you to the goal line. And if
Yep.
you're very intentional about every step, then maybe you won't be a lazy studier. Maybe you won't be
Mm.
lazy about I got this goal. Like I tell my kids, you have to participate in some type of sports or activity once you get to middle school and high school. And we don't do quitting midway through. So if you
Mm.
say you're going to play basketball, we playing basketball and mommy's gonna be at many games. So I'm making a commitment, you're making a commitment. It's no halfway through the season being like, oh, I'm over this and we get to quit. No, we don't get to quit.
Yeah, because that's because you can allow your kid to quit for whatever reason. Like they don't like it no more. It's a schedule change, something. But these patterns, you need to be careful because you allow
Right.
them to quit. They may think that's the option to take when things get hard or challenging.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely.
So thank you everybody for tuning in to another episode of the Melanated Convo podcast. Me and my sister Sonia. Today, of course, like I said before, we are going to touch on a few news stories. We got a few things that have been going on with our babies in the news, so we'll dissect it, give our opinion on it. And then the topic for the day is how do we keep our young men out of the streets, right? Black men
Yeah.
make up the bulk of the individuals inside of prison, like incarcerated facilities. The majority of the individuals in there are black, but sometimes the criminality or the mindset or the routines that they start, a lot of this shit
Right.
starts when they're a kid at times. It starts when they're in third
Absolutely.
grade, fourth grade, how they're interacting with their teachers. So we gonna give our input on how can a black parent prevent their children from feeling like the streets or criminality or anything going on in the neighborhood is something for them, because it's a
Right.
challenge at time, right? And we all know that there are systematic issues that we've always had to deal with. We're going to touch on that, but and I'll share some stats about different things the criminal justice system put on our babies, but we need to take that serious, Sonia, because way too many of our black
Absolutely.
men are in prison, and we need to start with the babies.
Yep. I 100% agree. And it's one of those things that when we are very intentional that the system is the way that the system is, we not give up, send them the message that they are prey to that system. We have
Yes.
to send them the message that this is what it is, and this is how I'm going to help you prevent going, down this pathway.
Exactly, right. Because I'm getting to the point, Sonia, where I understand the racism and everything we go through, and this needs to be highlighted and called out every chance we get. But it also should be like a stop sign. Like we
Yeah,
should just help our people navigate through. So learning all this history and knowing about these stories and the police injustice, all of this should motivate you to want to kind of get your family in order and just take it more serious. You know what I mean?
absolutely.
Definitely. So another thing, shout out to my brother Barry Axius. This last Sunday, I was invited to a Malcolm X Fest, the third annual Malcolm X Fest that took place here in Sacramento, where I'm from. Last year, I was there as well doing my show, so I was able to do a live episode of the Melanated Convo podcast, and it was just like last year. It was such a great experience. It was last minute, and the 6 individuals I had on the panel with me, I've never met before. You know what I mean? But great minds think alike. Like these are conscious people who
Yeah,
are doing different things in our community in different fields. So shout out to everybody who came to the Malcolm X Fest. Shout out to my 6 guest hosts who was on the show with
yay,
me. The show was fire, man. We talked to Sonia. We talked about the progress since Malcolm X died. We talked about gun violence in our neighborhood. We talked about reparations. It was just so uplifting, because I'm used to doing my show like this with you or
right,
sometimes even by myself. So I've never had
right,
I've never had like a panel type discussion with that many people. But what I'm realizing is when
yeah,
you're around like-minded individuals, things can get kind of easy. You know what I mean? So I was just bringing up things I want to talk about, and they was just knocking it down. And what I
yeah,
liked, Sonia, there was a small amount of disagreement about certain things. Everybody had the same
yeah,
goal, but how we
you're right.
get there, certain individuals slightly disagreed, but they disagreed with respect, and it was still a
Absolutely.
loving environment. So that's something I mentioned when the show was over. Like, as long as we have a common goal as Black folks, we should be okay. Like, don't get off course. Just because
Yeah,
my ideology may be slightly different from yours, don't mean we not still going the same way. So I appreciated watching everybody passionately state their feelings and just unapologetically approach these topics about our community. So shout out to my brother Barry. And there was a little audience there, right? So then, and I did like a Malcolm X
yeah.
trivia where I got people involved and I gave away some of my shirts.
Good.
My homeboy was there, will be helping sell the shirts. So
Yeah,
just being in
yeah,
environments where empowerment is the reason why we're here,
you're right.
I begin to learn that's so uplifting because sometimes as Black folks, we enter in environments where we're there to have fun or we're there to drink or we're there to chill. And sometimes the energy in those environments, things can happen. You know what I mean? So I'm
Yep.
happy to be a part of something like that again. Shout out to my brother Barry Axius. Next year, we'll be having that same Malcolm X Fest here in Sacramento, but I was happy to be a part of that celebration. You feel me now? Let's get into it. Like I said, me and my sister Sonia gonna have a conversation about our babies and keeping them out of the streets and jail. But first, let's talk about a couple news stories, family. Now, Sonia, in October
Yeah,
of last year, a young Black man named Sensei Reed. Sensei Reed is this young Black man's name, right? Last year, Sonia, he in his apartment complex, this is in Wedgwood Apartments in Columbus, Ohio,
yeah,
a white man named Craig Butler, and this is what witnesses say, that according to reports, a witness saw Butler exit his red truck before shooting Sensei 4 to 5 times. So this is a young Black man. I think he's 13 years old, young Black man that was shot several times by this suspected white supremacist, Sonia, and there's no reason behind it. I wanted to talk about
right.
this story because we bring these stories up and we kind of detail all of the um everything that happened leading up to the incident. Well, Sonia, in this situation, witnesses say the white man just got out the car and shot this young Black man in self-defense. They're claiming self-defense.
Yeah,
No gun was found on the young Black man. To my understanding, he didn't have a gun. So I'm trying to get a handle on, and of course, we understand the racism and how these communities work, but I'm trying to get a handle on Why would you shoot one of our babies like that? Like our young
Yeah.
men, starting from 10 or 11 up, get treated like adults by all forms of authority
Yes.
figures. Their school,
Yes.
police, individuals in the police department. So Sonia, when you see, because the family's fighting, this guy, Craig Butler, the story comes back up, Sonia, because Sunday, May 21st, he was finally indicted. But the big thing is, Sonia,
Finally.
he was indicted on improper handling of a firearm in a motor vehicle and tampering with evidence related to the shooting of this young man. Not murder, not murder in the first degree, not murder in the second degree. So when you see a story like this unfold, what are some of the things you're thinking?
Well, okay, so from a mother perspective, a family community perspective, I'm always going to ask the question of how do these things keep slipping through the crack? We know for sure that when persons who are have the privilege of walking in white skin, regardless of their gender, their sexuality, their socioeconomic background, their religion, a white person in this country can almost get away with anything.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's part of the problem, right? So first, my first mind is like, well, dang, y'all not gonna do nothing about this. And a part of me wants to believe that the legal arm of the police department would be there to protect my community and my black body and my black children's bodies
Mm-hmm.
just as much as they do white bodies. Then I'm thinking from a community organizing perspective, it's like, why are we here again? Why do we have to wait? Right? Dr. King said, justice denied anywhere is justice denied everywhere. And
Mm-hmm.
so, if we continue to allow for the circumstances to be that a year later, now we get charges and then another slap in the face. Oh, yeah, we arrested him, but we didn't arrest him for murder. We didn't arrest him for the things that we typically would associate with such a crime.
Mm-hmm.
Those therein lies the problem.
Mm-hmm.
So I just find it very difficult to, as a mother, as a community member, to sit back and be like, "Dang, okay, they finally arrested him," and do a rah 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 hooray kind of moment because
Yeah.
we shouldn't have to wait this long for justice to come for us.
Yeah, we shouldn't have to wait. And like I always say, we're gonna continue to talk about these incidents. But in America, our relationship
Yeah,
with the police departments and police unions, like this complete structure, is a very abusive relationship. And in my opinion, they continue
very.
to do things to make it a very distrustful relationship because we keep seeing these incidents where white men with guns find, for whatever reason, they shooting our babies. I
Yeah,
was reading a story the other day, Sonia, about a young cheerleader who they was done with cheerleading practice or some shit like this, and she
yeah,
got in the wrong car. She just got in the wrong car, and the white man in the front seat thought that meant that he can begin shooting at them. Shot a couple of them. Nobody
yeah,
died. But look, man, the family of this young man are, they're upset about this, and they're going to make sure they go as far as they can and make sure it's tried on a
absolutely.
federal level or whatever the case may be. But we got to continue to call these cops out, man. Our relationship with the cops, like the
Yeah,
origination of police departments in America, we're still seeing a lot of the same remnants from this. And how do we talk to young black people about police departments and the justice system when these type of things happen? Because this young man, we're going to talk about another story with a different young man, but just being involved in these situations, we this is why we see police cars and get nervous. This is why I have no warrants. I
way in
have
which to act.
tags. I have a license. When
Right,
police get behind me, I'm nervous than a motherfucker, and that shouldn't be the
right.
case. So we got
It
to
should
keep
not be
talking
the
about
case.
this. And families, like black families, when you're wronged by this system, go all out. Yeah, protest,
Absolutely.
sue, speak to your city councilman, speak to the mayor, do whatever you can, because just leaving it up to this system to help us out, Sonia, don't seem like it's gonna work.
It's not, and it hasn't worked, and we have to historically start pushing the envelope. in a different way. And that's not to say that we haven't pushed the envelope in the past. I
Hmm.
think historically, Black folks are the big one group of people who have pushed back. I don't want
Hmm.
this narrative out there that we just sit back and we take it. There's
Hmm.
this narrative out there that slaves just took it. It's not true. There were so many insurrections during slavery.
Hmm.
These pushing backs against law enforcement have been transpiring since slavery because, as we know, law enforcement are former slave catchers. We can't reiterate that more
Exactly.
enough so that people understand the connection, but we have always pushed back. And I just don't want people to believe that they don't have power to do so.
Hmm. And you know, and we never want to push a narrative where we're hating anybody. Like I don't have
Right,
a just in reality, like I don't have this strong hate for white people, but
right.
racist white people who use their privilege in the law to get away with harming us, fuck that. We have to be no nonsense about these
No
incidents.
nonsense.
And all of us with children, another part of the reason I bring these particular type of stories up, because if you have children, this should enrage you. This should make you want to be involved in some of our movements. This should make
Right.
you want to get the information about the details surrounding how we're treated so you can teach your children, so you can help
Yeah.
them prevent. Because sometimes I know Black folks who step back and say that ain't got nothing to do with me. I got to go to work tomorrow. See, but
Yeah.
when something happened to your child, unfortunately, something happened to somebody in your family, then you wanna call a Black Lives Matter type organization or someone who can come out and kick up dust. But we should be on high
Absolutely.
alert anyways. We should be on higher alert.
Anyway.
Now, Sonia, something I was just thinking about. How how much would you think things like this would get affected if we had um righteous minded Black cops who like flooded the police departments to be involved? Is it a broken system that's going to find a way to not allow them to be righteous, or would that create a little more balance?
Oh my goodness, that's a good question, Harrison. I wish that I can say I knew of an example of
Mm,
one police department where there were righteous Black cops that stood up. And I don't even want to just leave it to righteous Black cops. I want to be able to say righteous cops, period,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, I know Black cops. A funny thing about me is that my last teaching assignment was with Sac City Unified, and I was the program coordinator, lead teacher for the Criminal Justice Academy. My
Mm,
business partner at Kennedy High School was the Sacramento Police Department. Now, hold on, hear me out. Granted, one of the missions of this program was to prepare young people to go into a career of law enforcement in whatever capacity. I feel like I did my job so well that only 3 out of maybe 600 kids went into the police department because I gave them a plethora of other law enforcement related career paths that they can choose from.
mm,
But they talked about on a regular basis what it meant to be a conscious police officer. They talked about what it means to be community minded and community policing. They talked about the broken parts of the system. And a lot of my students were very conscious of the fact that for people who looked like them, policing wasn't fair. And
mm,
we had those conversations in front of, because oftentimes these programs are attractive to Black officers because what it does is it connects them with young people and it takes them off of the street in areas where they know that they might not have the power or feel powerful enough to be that conscious police officer. In a classroom with some kids, they can be conscious, right? But
mm.
out there on the streets where there is a white power structure that dictates your every move and how you maneuver as a cop, that is stressful for Black officers.
I
And so
bet.
I often found a lot of Black cops who were good people, like legitimately good people, gravitated to programs that had to do with youth. And if you look around any city, county around this country, when we talk about law enforcement being a part of school resource programs, right? A lot of times it's Black cops
And that's
for
see,
that very reason.
and I'm so torn by it because
Yes.
Seems like a lot of our brothers and sisters enter into these white racist institutions with the idea of, yeah, I need a job and a career and it's going to help my family, but
Mhm.
I'm righteous. I'm going to change this
Right.
shit. I'm going to do
Right.
right. So by me doing right, it's going to be a trickle down effect where I can affect change. And Sonia, it just seems like sometime they be too much behind the eight ball. Like, and with the
Absolutely.
cops, we have to acknowledge that if having a job that entails you leaving your house every day with a damn gun, this is serious. This is
Yes.
serious, right? So some of these black cops may feel like, look, if I say something, if I whistle blow, if I be contentious to some of the shit I see, it can cost me
Right.
my life. Like I may
Right.
not get the protection from my partner. It may not be a just situation for me. So it's difficult, man, because I do feel we need more black police officers in our neighborhood. Like in a perfect world, the neighborhoods that are all black, people, members of the community should be policing these individuals.
Right.
You know what I mean? But at the end of the
Absolutely.
day, I think to fix this system, to fix the criminal justice system that we see it today, it needs to be dismantled. Like we damn near need to start over. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I love that you can come to an articulate, well analyzed conclusion that it needs to be dismantled because there are certain just areas of the system that are so broken. We can't put band-aids on it. We can't put band-aids on something that requires surgery. And that's the
Mm,
reality that we are in right now. Um, I tell people all the time, my father got out the military. He went to and served in Vietnam. And back then, at that time, a righteous job option for people who exited the military who didn't suffer too severely from PTSD was to go into law enforcement. And so
mm,
in his mind, he was like, I'm going to apply for the Richmond Police Department. That's where he lived at the time. And he applied, and the system broke him. The system
mm,
challenged him. The system said, we don't want you here, nigga. And we gonna make sure that you don't get to integrate this department like the department wants to be integrated. So he and four other officers were hired to integrate the Richmond Police Department, but white supremacists and KKKs are all around this country. Don't let California move, don't let this move taste fool you. There was a fraction within the police department called the White Knights of Richmond, and they
mm,
were equivalent to the KKK, and they ran all five of those black officers out there within a matter of 2 years. My father lasted 18 months, but by 2 years, all five of them either had quit or had been fired because a target was put on their back that you are not welcome here, nigga. And I don't care how qualified, how do in my dad's mind, he had two goals. His goal was to make things better for black people in his community. And so that was at a time that um, community policing was a tactic that they used. So the beat that he worked, he knew the people in that neighborhood. The other thing that he made a very quick, clear understanding of was I'm never driving my police car and I'm never wearing my uniform when I go home because I don't
mm,
want my community to look at me and be like I'm a traitor.
mm.
I'm not going to protect my community. And granted, this was during the time of the Black Panther Party. So he was really, really treading on thin ice. But he had to let it
Damn.
go. He had to come to the conclusion that I am not effective here.
Damn, we need to realize and be okay with and gain strength from the reality of the situation this country puts us in. Like
Absolutely.
it puts us in
Absolutely.
really awkward as uncomfortable situations. And I think the only way to solve it is to dismantle all these systems, which I'm not sure if this country is up to do that for the sake of us. But as black
Right.
folks, sometimes we got to start thinking, okay, then how if they not gonna dismantle this goddamn system, how do I prevent myself from being washed away by it? How do I
Right.
prevent myself from not being in a situation where I'm in jail or I'm in a position where now I can't feed my family or I have to face some of these, you know what I mean? This is so
Absolutely.
it's so detailed and all of us need to find a way to help with this. Like all
Yeah.
Black folks, how can you, whether it be just raising your family, whether it be, speaking out against things, but we all got to come together to figure out, because this system may not do it, Sonia, not in our lifetime.
Right.
Like trying to
Not in our
dismantle this shit,
lifetime.
trying to get reparations, trying to get this racist white man to do something may be futile. We just may need to get
Right.
on our own shit and protect our own completely. That may be the end all be all when it comes to all this shit. You know what I mean? So shout
Yeah.
out to that
Yeah.
young brother. I mean, RIP to that young brother. I hope his family continues to fight. If you have to sue and just get money out of the system, fine. But I like it, Sonia, when I see like a Stevante Clark, right? Where I see a horrible situation happen to a
Right.
member of our community and their
Right.
family gets outraged, but then they say, fuck that, I'm going to do something. See?
Right.
So that's like the positive spin that I put on it, because relying on this system to help us out, it's not going to help us. You feel me? So
No.
next news
Yeah.
story that I want to talk about real quick. Another young man. This is 11-year-old. 11-year-old brother. Sonia, he's in Indianola. It's Indianola Police Department, and this is in Mississippi. This is a small the Mississippi Delta, so we know how they give it up out there. So this 11-year-old boy, Sonia, just his mom told him to call the police
Yeah.
because she was having a domestic dispute with a man that she has a baby with. She was having a domestic dispute with him. She told her 11-year-old, hey, call the police. This young
Right.
11-year-old boy calls the police. The police shows up like they're there for a drug bust or something different, because with the domestic violence situations, in my opinion, you're there to have a conversation, see how bad it is, gauge how much violence has taken place. Like it's some patience that's required
Right.
to do that. From my understanding, the cops showed up with their guns out. So the cops
Absolutely.
showed up with their guns out, and ultimately, which they didn't clarify why this happened, one of the police officers showed up and he shot his gun in the house. So for the life of me, I can't understand, if you're there to have a conversation or arrest someone
Yeah.
who you think was involved in a domestic dispute, why is the gun out? And then to make
Yeah.
matters worse, you end up shooting this 11-year-old baby. Now, this 11-year-old boy, Sonia, suffered a collapsed lung, fractured ribs, a
Yeah.
lacerated liver, right? Thankfully, he was still able to go home in a few days. But what kind of scary shit is this? Like we are giving damn near maniacs guns. Like, should we just remove the gun thing? Should we just say
Yeah.
cops go out to houses, but shit, you got a stun gun in conversation? Would that change your mentality? Because it seems like the cop who shot in this house was scared. Maybe it was an area he's not used to going to. But
Yeah.
what can we do about situations like this, Sonia? Because this is an 11-year-old boy.
It's so unfortunate. These are the stories that really, really bug me to no end. You're 11 years old, you're a child, your parent who is in distress asks you to call the police, and you end up being the one that's a victim of police violence.
Mhm.
And so I'm disturbed on so many levels, right? So, first, I would say, yeah, we have a problem because when police officers are scared to go into certain communities and they feel like they know the background or the ethnicity of the people that they're going to, go up on, they act differently.
Mhm.
And that's an unfortunate reality that we have to deal with. But I also come from the vein of being a community organizer. And I tell people all the time, create your own safety net plan, because
Mm.
if you call in the police, that one, they're not going to save your life because they are um, not masters of de-escalation, and they escalate things to serious consequences and effects of a young 11-year-old ended up being shot, right? um I would tell families, I don't care who your family is, every household, you need to have your own safety net. Like if something happens, who can you call to come and help de-escalate that situation? Who do you trust? Because at this point, Harrison, I'm serious when I say I ain't calling the police for shit. I'm
Come
not
on now.
calling them to my house. If my kids get into something and it's domestic violence, and I got a kid that's, you know, most of my kids are bigger than me. I'm the mother of 6 black boys. Most of my kids are bigger than me. My
Mhm.
nephews are bigger than me. If they get into it, yeah, I'm going to, because I trust that I can help de-escalate a situation, put my body on the line. But there's a risk that I also run that I could potentially get hurt because they're bigger than me.
Mhm.
Who can I call that's just as big as them to help me de-escalate? It's not going to be the
Yeah.
police, because I don't want to run the risk of the police coming in, gun blazing, and they shoot one of us, because we see that happen all the time. Breonna Taylor is dead because a neighbor called and said, "There's not a problem," but I just feel like her door being open, warrants us to check it out. And he
Hmm.
said, "There's not a problem." And this man now suffers because he called the police. A black man called the police to aid in the assistance of what he thought was a black woman being in distress. I, I I have a problem with us being feeling like that's the only option we have. And so I say create your own support systems. Put a list on the wall and be like, okay, in case my babies, we sit down and have a conversation. In case of emergency, call 1 2 3 4 5 first before you ever call 911.
And that
And be specific when you call 911. If you don't want the police to show up, you can make that request. If you only need ambulance or medical support, you can say that over the phone
oh,
to
that's
911.
interesting. That's
You can
interesting.
say, I don't want the police to show up here. This is a medical emergency. I only want ambulance service. You can
Mm,
say that.
that's interesting. Good point. And I was gonna say something that you just said, Sonia, like that. Why are you calling the police? Now I know this mother at this point, and she's mentioned that she regrets calling the
Yeah,
police because the her baby daddy who came, and he came at like 4 o'clock in the morning. She felt nervous. He didn't touch her or nothing, but she was feeling a way about him coming.
right,
He was released. She didn't press charges. So in actuality, like Sonia said, if there's violence happening at my house, not like a heart attack or a
right,
medical emergency where I need
right.
authority figures, if there's violence, if there is individuals at my home that I don't want to be there, all of these things, black family, melanated family, we got to get to the point where we can fix these problems ourselves. Like Sonia just said, who can I call to come over here who gonna do who gonna be righteous? They ain't coming
Right,
over here just guns blazing. They coming over
right,
here to fix the problem and gonna do whatever they need to, but they
right.
coming over here to fix the problem because the same way I think, and I don't want to scare black folks, but you got to be aware of why the hell you calling the police. And like Sonia
Yeah,
said, I didn't know that. You can be specific. Do not send a police officer here. Send this, or this is my
right,
actual situation. Just calling the
right.
police hysterically, telling them come to your house. When you black, you live in a certain area, you don't know how
Yeah,
they gonna show up. And the fucked up part is they leave after killing somebody in your family or wounded somebody in your family, and they don't go to jail. They don't
no,
get reprimanded the way a regular citizen should be. So, and I hate to feel that way at times. But when I see
yeah,
cops or police officers, I'm not going to judge you, officer, but it's you against me. This is how the system has created it.
absolutely.
So I'm speaking to you different. I'm on code when I'm talking to
Right,
you.
no,
I don't trust you at all. Look, man, this
right.
is what this country has done. So I'm not going to take when good officers want to
Yeah,
condemn the public for treating his police department a certain way when I don't care if it's just two of y'all in that police department that ain't shit. That's way too much
that part.
because y'all not policing each other.
Absolutely.
What's obvious is y'all not policing each other. Y'all don't got the balls to say, "Hey, bro, what you just did wasn't right." For the sake of
Right.
fucking
And
humanity.
all it takes is one
Yeah.
rotten apple.
Yes.
One
See?
rotten apple rottens the whole barrel. Like that's this is not science. You put
Mhm.
apples in a bucket, one of them being rotten, the touching of is going to cause the other ones to quickly rotten as well. And
Mhm.
so I know that there are a lot of police departments who are having these initiatives of we're not tolerating this on our watch. Um, I haven't seen it work yet, though. I just have. I mean, the lip service is good. Lip service is wonderful. The
Yeah.
idea, the concept is beautiful. I haven't seen it work yet. And so that tells you that this is a part of the culture of power. This is
Mhm.
culture of power is also part of the culture of white supremacy. We cannot separate the two. So again, to your point earlier, May, there are some parts of this system that are completely broken. Therefore, we need to dismantle, disrupt, reinvent, do what it needs to be for it to be rebuilt so that we can reimagine a future where all people would be treated with dignity and humanity. At the end of the day, that to me is what, when I see a law enforcement police car and it says protect and serve, to me, that means dignity and humanity. And so if you separate those two things from happening, then you really are not protecting and serving.
Yep. And the saddest part of this story to me is the young man. We're talking about a young 11-year-old boy who was shot by the police after calling them on the request of his mother because of a domestic dispute she was having.
Yeah.
This young boy asked his mom, Sonia, what did I do wrong?
Right.
Why? How do you
Right.
answer that when your 11-year-old says, why did he shoot me, mama? I was just trying to help you out. I didn't do nothing. Why did he shoot me? So now we have another young black man growing up, and he's not going to be comfortable around the police. And people in society don't realize it's not just the police. We're going to associate that type of authority figure wherever we go. So in school, if the police who showed up had a certain demeanor and they were white and they had a certain aura about them, he gonna take that shit out on his teacher. Not not in a negative way, but you can't help but do that when these people are outsiders. Like when growing up in my neighborhood, every time I seen cops, sometimes teachers or authority figures, social workers, they never gave me a warm and fuzzy feeling. It was they were always uncomfortable. They was always like they was doing some shit they didn't want to do. It was a really weird situation, and I began to associate that with other types of authority figures. So this young man is going to have a hard time. We should not live in a country where I got the police behind me and I'm nervous. This is some bullshit, man, and it continues to happen. But black folks, okay, removing what the system needs to do, legislation, charging these cops the correct way. We know the system can fix some things, but the system ain't broken. That's the problem. Black folks, what you gonna do? How you gonna raise your family different? How you gonna approach family different? How you gonna approach community different? How you gonna we should damn near treat our communities like we all in here doing a whole bunch of shit, some positive, some negative. We gonna deal with all of it together. We ain't calling no outsiders to come solve these problems, because solving our problems a lot of times means harming one of us, and we can't afford that. It's bad enough because of self-hate and white supremacy, we harming each other. You see what I'm saying? So some deep shit. Shout out to that young man, Darian Murray. I'm happy he's not dead. He has a collapsed lung, fractured ribs, lacerated liver. He's lucky to be alive. And for what? Like, what did he do wrong? You know what I mean, Sonia? It's a horrible
and here's the other thing that law enforcement agencies across this country hate. They would rather pay out a claim for somebody who's dead because the dead body can't talk. But when the person survives a bullet from a officer's weapon, they can talk. And so the damages are even typically higher because that person now has to live the rest of their life with these wounds and this experience. Whereas if it's a dead person, you paying out their loved one. You're not paying them, right? So this law enforcement agency in Mississippi is going to not only have to pay for the livelihood of this 11-year-old and his upkeep if these injuries prevent him from living a healthy life for the rest of his life, but they're going to have to pay damages to his mother and potentially his siblings, because at the end of the day, when we're talking about shooting in occupied spaces, we run the risk of multiple people getting shot.
And look, like on a spiritual level, if some of you white supremacists don't believe in the spiritual realm, if you don't believe in God, you can't walk around conducting yourself like this, killing babies and killing innocent black people like they just gone like that. If you believe in spirits and a higher power, something has to be reckoned with this. You can't just go around treating people like
Absolutely.
this. You see what I'm saying? And still 2023, and there still ain't been a black revolution where we masked up, got guns, and went
Got that
out.
get back.
We still ain't did that yet. Ain't that's damn near amazing. I'm not advocating any kind of violence because we
Right.
Africans, so we always looking to be peaceful and we one with
Right.
the universe. So we don't even think that way when it comes to certain
Right.
stuff. But goddamn, man, we still haven't reacted in a violent way the way you guys treat us. And this society is lucky for that. But that may not be the case for
It
too
might
much
not be
longer.
soon. Right.
You never know. You know what I mean? So hopefully this young man recovers. Hopefully his family does everything they can. But I hope his family and the people around him use this as a rallying cry. Like, you know what?
Yeah.
Now I'm gonna get involved in my community. Now I'm gonna
Yeah.
make sure they pay us, but I'm gonna be an advocate for other young men. We gotta take the positive
Absolutely.
out of this shit, the things we can do ourselves because this system is not gonna help us. So let's go.
Yeah.
Topic of the day, right? Me and
Yeah.
Sonia spoke about this before, having young men who have been involved in the criminal justice system a little bit, me a little more than her. But the point is, as black folks, we know that, more black men are incarcerated in the prisons around the country than any other race of people.
Yeah.
A lot of this starts when they're young. The temperament, the interaction with authority figures, the mental stability of these young people, a lot of it starts when they're young, Sonia. So the question that I'm asking everybody is, what can we do as black folks to prevent our young men from being involved in the streets? Like, we need to
Yeah.
realize, like, the likeliness of a young man going to jail, if there are certain factors in play, becomes pretty high. And then you
Yeah.
account for the fact that you can be a black man who's doing everything right, and you still may find yourself in a position where you're involved with the
Absolutely.
police. You know what I mean? So, because I was looking at this just as far as young people are concerned, like, there's a much larger population of white teens in this country, right? But like 75% of white teens. But when it comes to the violent crimes and who's being charged, we're only 15% of the population, but we're charged
Correct.
at like 52% higher than the
Correct.
white teens in our country. You know what I mean? So Sonia, when we
Right.
look at young black men, what are some of the factors you would say as a parent, right? As a parent, before the kid comes,
Yeah.
because this is when it starts, a young person who's planning their life, who's planning the different decisions they're going to make to better their life. How can a black person plan that in a way that can position their babies to be okay, position their babies where they don't feel like they got to sell drugs or be involved
Right.
in street culture, knowing that personalities are personalities. Sometimes you can do all the things right and you still have a young man who thinks he need to engage in this kind of shit. But what can we do as parents,
Absolutely.
Sonia, to make sure our young men go in the right direction?
Yeah. I think it's always going to be a very tricky and slippery slope to try to navigate. But I think that we have to have very honest conversations from the beginning with our young people to one highlight what is our circle of influence. I think that if we identify as parents, like, these are the people that are around us to help support us and lift us up. This
Hmm.
goes back to African culture in the sense of it's not just the singular family, because in
Hmm.
America they highlight the singular family being mother, father, children, right?
Yeah.
But in
Yeah.
other cultures, in indigenous places, the family is an extension of that. So it might be your in-laws, so grandparents. It could be that a sibling stays home because they haven't been married off yet, and they're home and they contribute too. It could be, auntie and them on the block that don't have any children. After we were freed and emancipated after slavery, we created these communities.
Hmm.
And so it's not that we don't know how. I think that we live in a system that forces us not to rely on. So, like, I'm very intentional with my boys with introducing them to people who are movers and shakers. I teach them and model for them what it means to speak up and articulate or advocate for yourself. Don't be sitting over there in the corner and let somebody point you out and be like, oh, it was him. No, be like, no, right? Because when we don't, and if we are not assertive, then things we can get labeled. And I can remember one of my kids telling me, this is my fourth grader this year. He's in the fourth grade in elementary school, and he said that his teacher believed that he was with some other kids who was talking in the back of the classroom, and because he didn't feel like having an argument with him, because he felt like to defend himself would be an argument.
Mm.
In my opinion, defending yourself is saying, hold up, I didn't do this, and this is actually what transpired. Now,
Mm-hmm.
again, that's that slippery slope of, do I become the snitch? Because in
Mm-hmm.
community, also, that's frowned upon.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a way in which to advocate for yourself. And so we have to have these conversations with our young people. It's more than just deterring them away from street life.
Mm.
It's more than that, because oftentimes some of us are living in communities where we rely upon street life. Like, and I'm just gonna use this for example. I haven't bought nobody else's food stamps lately, but I'm not gonna tell you that I haven't. And
But
why would
sometimes
I
it's
buy
necessary.
somebody's food stamps? Because it's
Sometimes it's
necessary.
necessary.
Because
Yeah.
I know that there's times in a month, and being a mother for 29 years, there have been times in my life where my month was shorter than my dollar.
Mm-hmm. Come on
And
now.
so if I can get $100 of food stamps for 50,
Come on now.
that's a deal.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not to say that. So we got to understand, how do we balance that, and what is the message that it sends to our babies? Because at the end of the day, they are watching us. And
They're
if they are
watching everything.
watching us get over on each other, they
Mm-hmm.
watching that too.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
we harming each other in community, they are watching that too. So
Yeah.
it's all connected though. It's all
Mm-hmm.
connected in the way we communicate with each other.
Mm-hmm.
It's all connected in the way that we show up in spaces to be assertive and
Mm-hmm.
and take care of each other. Like, there is a code in the street. I tell people all the time, okay, if you gon' go down, there's a code. And you can't be out there in the streets if tomorrow you gonna call the police on somebody that you doing dirt with.
Mm-hmm. It's a
Where
it's a
they do
it's a
that at?
Yeah, it's a lot to it, Sonia. And I would say for all young parents, like, because I know we have outliers where we have young black men who got two-parent homes, don't live in the hood, and just being black, you can find
Right.
yourself in situations. I completely get
Absolutely.
this, but I'm gonna be honest. Sometimes how we decide to start our families is it 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 manufactures the type of environment that's
Yes.
going. So young people need to be aware, like, this is why we need to talk to our babies about their blackness. We need to talk to them
Yes.
about our communities and how things happen, because all too often I see young people who have kids early, have kids, and your kid ain't the primary focus. So you may not
Yeah.
read to the child. You may
Yeah.
not give your kid the necessary amount of attention. You may find yourself in a situation where you don't think it's necessary to discipline your child or create structure. Where I'm here
Right.
to tell you, if you don't create the necessary structure in regimen for your child, somebody outside of your house
Somebody
may
else will.
just do that for you. And the laws
Absolutely.
in how this country functions, unfortunately, family, this country is waiting for your child to do something wrong, Sonia, because I look at like the RICO laws and the
Yes.
gang enhancements. All of
Yes.
these laws have racist intentions. They may not have been started that way, but now they're used
Oh, they were
for
started that.
criminal. They're, well, because even like the RICO Act was starting for the mafia, right?
Yeah.
Now, just
Right.
to create an all-in law to get these guys off the street. The 1980s, they begin using the RICO Act against street gangs, and I was reading an article,
Yeah.
Sonia, about how unfair that is. Like, because
Right.
a part of the RICO is the organization got to be big enough where they're affecting legislation, they're affecting
Yeah.
politicians, they're
Yes.
affecting the money in the city. So we got to get them off the street to protect everybody else. Well, a lot of street gangs ain't doing it like that. A lot of street gangs are
Absolutely.
damn near just affecting their neighborhood, but you're
Yeah.
still hitting them with the RICO charge. You're still hitting
Yeah.
them with these all-in laws. So our young people need to be aware. You got a young boy, you got a young girl, you got to pour into them. That's why I
Well,
like
you
what we
know,
do. That's why I
yes,
like all the
absolutely.
organizations around town, because you got to pour into these young people, because if you don't, there's a system that's waiting for them.
Yeah. I mean, it's so important just to even peel back the layers of just answering this question. How do we keep young black boys and young children, young black children of any gender, but young black boys, because they are higher to have higher targets on their back, um, out of, the carceral system.
Mhm.
I also think that it's important that as we have those conversations with them and as we create our spheres of influence of who we trust and how we move in these particular spaces, that
Mhm.
we are preparing them for the real world. Like I use the example of my kids can't enter into middle school and high school and not partake in an activity or two or three. We
Mhm.
need to find our interests. We need my mama used to say and idle, what is it? Idle
Idle
hands
mind
is
is the
the
devil's
devil's.
playground.
Yeah, right.
Mhm.
And so when
Mhm.
you don't have things to do, you find yourselves in situations where you're doing things you might not normally do, or
Yep.
might go against the code of ethic of who and what your parents have trained you to be. Because oftentimes you'd be like, these mamas show up, these grandmas show up, and they be like, not my baby. My
Mhm.
baby go to church. My baby love the
Yeah.
Lord on Sunday morning. He know how to get on his knees and pray, but he hanging out with Pookie and them who
Yeah.
might not have those same values.
Yep.
And so another part of this family, melanated family, hear me when I say this with love, we need to love our kids enough that we love the kids that they hang out with. And what I mean by
Mm.
that is I know all my kids' friends. I know where they live. I know a mama or a daddy or a grandma, somebody in that house that I can call up and be like, our kids was such and such. Or when they at my house, I can call up and be like, "Do your kids got a food allergy?" Or
Mm.
when I can call. I used to be that mama on the block where I would spank everybody's kids. But I remember, I don't spank as much as my kids tell me I'm a punk now because I don't spank. But my older kids tell me that about my younger kids. But my older kids will be like, "Mom, can such and such come over?" I'd be like, "Yep, give me the number today, mama." I remember one of my boys had a Latinx kid as a friend, and I had to call up, and his mother barely spoke English. But when I said I'm gonna give him a whooping, she understood very. She was like, whoop him as much as you want to whoop him because he sometimes is out of control for me." And so, but again, that was us having some camaraderie as mothers saying that
Mm.
we have to make sure that our boys understand that the buck stops here and we want
Mm.
the best from them. But I bet you what, Harrison, all them kids in the neighborhood, they love coming to my house. They knew that they might get a whooping because they were being held accountable if they did something wrong. They knew
Mhm.
that they couldn't cuss in my backyard or I was gonna come out there with. I had a belt. We had a leather strap that we called Brother Man, and I'd be like, "Y'all need Brother Man to come out there and handle some business because Brother
Leather
Man will
strap.
show up and wreck shop. Play
That's
with me
funny.
if you want to." But they knew that they can come to my house. They had a healthy snack. We had fun. We played games, and
Mm.
I was present. And so
Mm.
for some of these kids who didn't have a parent that was present, that was golden for all they wanted was an adult to affirm them. I would ask them just like I asked my kids, "How was school today?" "Oh, you ain't doing what you're supposed to be doing at school. You need me to come up there because just
Mhm.
like I come up there for mine, I'm gonna come up there for yours. If you invited into my house, that means I care about you."
Mhm.
And so there's another level of concern that if I show up at that school and I see you acting a fool, I'm gonna be like, uh-uh,
Mhm.
we don't play that at home on the block. So why are you
Mhm.
giving these teachers that? And I don't have to be your mother to say that.
Yep.
So
And
though, I mean, we have to take it to that level for our kids, not just our birth kids, our own families, but kids and community.
we see it all the time where mothers and fathers in our community will say, "My house was the house where all
Yeah,
the kids came to. I had
yeah,
a dad in my house, and
yes,
my friends enjoyed my dad kind of
yes,
like creating structure and discipline." This is big. So, look, family, this system is waiting to criminalize our
yes,
babies. But Sonia, I was reading some stuff about how the how well your child reads, like how well your child comprehends. In little bitty children, we need to take it serious. We need to have like
Very.
a criminal prevention plan where I'm gonna spend as much time with this kid. I'm gonna read to the child. I'm gonna think about all of this so I can create the proper structure. There should be a mom and a
Absolutely.
dad in the house with a kid. Things happen and it don't end up that way, but that should be our goal. Like when we
Yeah.
talking to our kids about family, when we talking to our kids about their future, that should be our standard, a family structure. Because when you don't have that, shit get to going haywire. And if your third or fourth grader is having problems in school, not
Yes.
just disciplinary problems, because we know sometimes they pick on our babies, but if he's having comprehension problems, his
Yeah.
grades aren't good, he don't like
Yeah.
school, these are red flags. You have to be aware of this, Sonia, because 70%, 70 some odd percent of the prisoners that are in prison, black male prisoners, or just actually the
Yeah.
entire prison, they're illiterate. They can't read.
Absolutely.
That's a telltale
Absolutely.
sign
That's a
from
telltale
from
sign.
a person saying, I'm gonna use violence because I don't really understand what the fuck you just said, man.
Yeah.
I don't really get what you just said.
Yeah.
I don't get what this is saying, because I'm not gonna lie. I see black mothers sometimes when your baby get hurt or your baby in jail, you crying
Right.
saying how unfair it is, but you
Yeah.
ain't never read to them. The PTA
Right.
meeting, the meeting where you supposed to go up there and meet with the teacher, the open house. Huh?
Right.
If you ain't going to open house, you're not going to the meetings. You're not sitting down and saying, show me the homework. Let me help you. Maybe I don't
Yeah.
know the material, but whatever. Let me be interested. Let me be interested in you, young person. See,
Yeah.
we I think this needs to be translated the right way. We have a system that's waiting for your young person to commit a crime, waiting to
Absolutely.
throw them in the prison industrial complex. What are you going to do about it? You may have to be
Absolutely.
overly caring. You got to read more. You got to go up to the school even more. That may be the case, but all too often parents don't do this. And then when the police come and tell you Pookie just shot 7 people, you got the nerve to say, not my baby. But I mean,
Right.
shit, do you
Right.
know him like that?
Right.
How well do
And
you
I
know your
mean,
baby?
absolutely. How well do you know your baby? Because at the end of the day, again, the structure thing is critical. It is so critical. I don't care if the structure is you got a routine when it comes to bedtime at night. You got a
Mm-hmm.
routine and requiring them to learn and participate in the preparation with dinner. I don't care if it's
Mm,
a routine that we're passing down knowledge from older sibling to younger sibling, and we're creating a system of reciprocity in our own houses that somebody helped you, now you're going to help, someone that's coming up after you. The balance in that also should include what fun looks like. And I don't want to hear parents saying, I can't afford fun. I don't have time for
mm,
fun.
hmm.
Fun can be we picked up some cards and I taught my babies how to play dominoes and spades,
Ain't
because
that
that's what
fun?
my mom, we was poor. We were poor. But baby, when I went off to Spelman College and I'm sitting over at Morehouse's campus, I won more money hustling, playing dominoes and spades, a little extra money in my pocket from them little rich kids, because I
Mm-hmm.
can whoop some asses on some spades, and everybody wanted to be my partner, and we played for money, right? But here's the reality: all families don't, there's not equity in that structure system. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying that we can do some things that don't cost us a lot. Go outside. Man, Harrison, we grew up in the age where we actually went outside to play. And
Outside, damn right.
unfortunately, our kids don't get the opportunity to go outside and experience fresh air. And
Mm-hmm.
that's a shame. But I make my kids go outside. At summertime, today was the last day of school. And they gonna go outside. We're not going to be sitting in front of the TV, in front of these
Mm-hmm.
game systems, in front of a new report came out just the other day about our babies being so attached to social media. I'm
Mm-hmm.
telling you, parents, this is the danger. When we were kids, when we became teenagers, the Surgeon General talked about TV time, screen time, video game time, and the violence that's associated with it. Now it's social media time impacting the cerebral cortex of our children's minds, and they're
Mm,
becoming reliant upon it for that social emotional connection with people.
mm,
You need to have some social emotional connection with your children at home in a physical, tangible way that isn't, I need to whoop your ass. It needs to be social emotional connection that I know you, that you
Mhm.
understand what love is. Love feels like this. Love, I know your love language compared to this other child of mine's love language. Figuring
Mhm.
those things out, communicating with them in that regard. And it doesn't cost a lot of money to figure those things out. And the
Mhm.
last thing that I will say is when you recognize that your child is struggling in school, get the support that you can.
Mhm.
When you recognize that your child is suffering social and emotionally, use the medical system to your advantage and
Mhm.
get them help. We can no longer live under this system where we ain't gonna get our babies help. They just gonna have to figure it out.
Yeah.
No, they not gonna figure it out until it's too late. So
Yep.
let's help them figure it out now. Therapy matters. Therapy saves lives. I
Come on now.
firmly believe that therapy saves lives. My brother Conrad, we were just at a Black African American school board advisory meeting just this week. My homeboy Conrad, he was the chair of our parent engagement committee, wore a sweatshirt that said therapy saves lives. And I was thinking to myself, oh my God, I text all my kids, my parents, and everybody that I knew this week. Therapy saves lives. Therapy saves lives. Therapy saves lives. Black folks, we need to lean into some of the things our ancestors, they used these kind of things.
Mhm.
Like there were there were shamans and priests and people within our community circles back in Africa and in our indigenous lands that were the spiritual guides that weren't, the religious guides that
Mhm.
helped us through these situations. And so we need to get back to those kind of things as well. If it's the Boys and Girls Club, if it's whatever resource that there is in community, lean in and get those resources because they're there. We just sometimes ignore them or think that that's not cool. And
Yeah.
if we put the pressure on the city to put the money in the places that are going to fund the things that our babies need, they're going to have to fund the things that our babies need.
And so in talking about therapy, like, because I'm real passionate about this because I've been a young parent who didn't know anything, who thought I
Right.
was doing stuff the right way, but I just wasn't equipped with the proper tools. If you're a
Right.
parent who or about to be a parent and you know, because self-awareness is very important. If you know there's
Important.
trauma you've had to deal with in your life, there's trauma that affects you to today, and you ain't got no help, you're affecting your kids because I hear a
Absolutely.
lot of parents who be like, I love my kids, I love my kids, I love my kids. Well, I'm like, God damn,
Right.
it's hard for me to believe it because I don't see you loving yourself.
Yes.
So if you don't love yourself, you ain't gonna be able to love nobody else. So if you got abused, if you had a traumatic childhood, deal with that shit. Because if not, whatever, it's gonna seep into your child. And a lot of us
Yes.
are in our house, and I was raised this way, and I used to say it when I was younger. We in our house, and we telling our kids, "Do as I say, not as I do." I gotta be
Not as I
honest,
do.
parents. That's some stupid shit. Like we,
It is.
you, people are gonna do what they see. See, so sometimes people want to have a dysfunctional house, Sonia, but then when you
Yeah.
in Walmart with your little boy, you want to yell at him because he running and
Right.
acting bad. Well, no, no, no. He learned that shit in your house, in your
Absolutely.
home. That's ground zero,
Absolutely.
family. That's where you teach all the lessons. That's where you create the discipline. That's when you create the conversation style. Are you always yelling and cussing?
Right.
Do you
Right.
deal in traumatic yelling when it's something you got to tell them to do? It's a regular conversation. The kids are watching everything we do,
Everything.
family, and all too often we're inviting them to our dysfunction when they're
Yes.
pure. They're pure, like they don't know any of this stuff. And you got a teenager doing certain things. That's why I think if you have a young person who is getting into a lot of shit, there's a lot of factors that contribute to all of that, but you got to take accountability for it. You got to look
Absolutely.
at where you may have dropped the ball because I get it. Like being young, not having resources, being of a certain mindset, that just happens in America. But if you're not aware, man, if you're not aware of how you've hurt your kids and don't use revisionist history, like shit, 15 years ago, y'all didn't have no food. Now that's trauma. Now
It
That ain't
is.
the case. You want to act like that shit never happened. Nah.
Right. I'm telling you that revisionist history is something, boy. I tell you. Ask my 25-year-old how okay. I've shared this before on this show. That I don't know how many times this sucker has told me, "Oh my God, I remember when you did this, and I remember when you did that." And I'm thinking to myself, son, okay, mommy has apologized. Mommy has changed because you see that she's not doing it with your younger siblings. Can a sister get a break? Because now you're 25. And if you still struggling with the fact that I did X, Y, and Z when you was 10, baby, I need you to consider therapy. And he's like, he's at a place at 25. He's a month into it. And I'm like, you really need to consider therapy. And he's like, Mom, I do. I really am angry about some things. And I'm going to explore getting therapy.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas his younger brother, who's 22, he's like, man, therapy is the best thing I've ever done.
And that's okay. Like creating that conversation, that's
Yes,
okay. And I'm happy that your son is comfortable enough to come to you and say, Mom, remember that day when I was 10? And you could be like, shut up. What you talking about? Don't bring, you know what I
right.
mean?
Or it didn't happen like that. I didn't do that.
Your approach matters. Like your approach
Absolutely.
matter. All too often, we looking at the result of our mistakes sometimes. If you got kids out here doing a whole bunch of foul things or they're living a particular way, yeah, that's an
Yeah,
individual who's
yeah,
making decisions, but never be afraid to just go into your mental Rolodex and think about all those moments as they were
yeah.
growing up. How proficient were you?
Absolutely.
How well
Absolutely.
did you do certain things? Because if you didn't, the kids is sometimes the biggest indicator of who you are at times.
Absolutely. Oh my goodness, absolutely. And I say this again with love, just reflecting on who I was as a parent, who I am as a parent. Like I always tell people, okay, we hear the saying there are two sides to every story. No, multiple things can be right at the same time.
Very true. Yes.
Like this is we are struggling with sometimes children don't know the backstory.
Mm,
Why did you make that decision, Mom?
that's
Why
true.
couldn't I get this, Mom?
Mm,
Dad, why weren't you there? They don't understand the backstory because they're children.
yep.
I I tried my best as a parent. I when I'm talking to other parents, we have to be overly, uberly transparent with our young people to a certain degree of like, look, my mom, we were poor. I didn't realize that we were as poor as we were when I was a senior in high school. She gave me the checkbook and said, "This is how much money is in the bank. Here's all the bills. I'm gonna let you figure out. Since you think I can go out, back then I wanted some Guess jeans and I wanted some Reeboks. That's all I wanted her asked to go to Macy's, mama, and buy me some Guess jeans and some Reeboks. And she was like, I can't afford that, but I'll take your ass to Kmart and we gonna get what we get. And when you come home for school, you're gonna take that shit off because you might have to wear one of those pieces later in the week because we learned how to rotate our shit when we was 4.
Uh-huh.
But I can remember being a senior in high school and she gave me the checkbook and she gave me the bills and she said, figure out how to manage this for the month. And it shocked me. I was like, you ain't got enough money in the bank. Where the rest of the money at? And I was
Where the
like,
rest of the
oh,
money?
where the rest of the money at? I'm serious. But I gained a greater appreciation. Now, I remember her doing that for me. And I will tell you wholeheartedly, it was one of the best lessons that I had. I
Mm,
failed at transferring that knowledge to my kids. Like, I literally
mm,
would tell them, I would be like, we ain't rich like that. But I never proved it to them. We lived in a certain
mm.
neighborhood. We drove, both my husband and I drove 2 vehicles. So the perception in their mind was like, we just like the family across the street, but our bank accounts might not look like the family across the street. So I didn't
Mm.
prove it to them. My mother proved it to me by giving me that checkbook, by saying, baby, balance these bills for the month. I didn't prove it to them other than tell. So my mother never told us we was poor. She just went about her business and was like, you got a roof over your head, you got food on the table. Whereas
Mm.
I thought that I was doing my kids justice by telling them, we both, we ain't got it like them across the street. I'm just being honest, folks. but they didn't want to hear that because the perception was visual. So we
Mm,
have to do more than just tell them. We have to show them. If it's like, if you have the opportunity to take your kids to work, let them come to work with you.
mm,
That's huge. They need to see and value how you earn a living, right?
mm,
Don't just tell them, oh, mommy and daddy got a job. Don't just tell them, oh, I'm a, medical tech at the hospital. Let them know what that means. I was a teacher for 17 and a half years. I can't tell you the number of times they were always with me in the classroom doing community service.
mm,
My husband is a press engineer. I'd be like, I had to pull up pictures of what that big giant press machine looks like so that they can appreciate that this is a very dangerous job that he does. And it has a nice, pretty, cushy title, press engineer. But at the end of the day, he prints the newspaper, and he can die in that machine. The wrong move could cut off a finger, could cut off
mm,
a toe. The wrong move can be life threatening. So we have to give them the keys and the knowledge to what the whole picture looks like, and not give them puzzle pieces. Because we know what we do with puzzle pieces. We get frustrated when one don't fit. This one don't fit
mm.
here. It look like it fit here. It don't fit here. And then they grow up and they be like, well, damn, I didn't know that because the puzzle pieces was messed up. We got to figure
Oh,
that out.
damn. And that's deep, Sonia, because the level you need to be transparent in the right way, because
Yes.
sometimes I've seen parents who don't have the money or don't have something, and you want to provide it. So when the kid
Yes.
asks you or come at you, you may get defensive or you may get kind of mad, not mad at them, but you just mad that you ain't got it. You got to
I ain't got it
transfer
like
that
that.
energy. You got to transfer that
Yes.
energy into a teaching moment, like your mom
Yes.
did with you. You know what I mean? Because sometimes, yeah, you may live in the hood. Yeah, you may not have money, but if the parenting is done the right way, you
Yeah.
could potentially put your children in a position where they don't feel they got to do certain things, or bigger than all
Absolutely.
that, they feel that they got love. They don't feel like they're
Right.
lacking, because I hear a lot of people say, I was poor, didn't know I was poor. To me, that means your mama and daddy did something right.
They did absolutely. I promise you. I felt love. I felt protected. I felt secure in my house. This is really and truly. So that lesson on the checkbook really didn't. It showed me, okay, the money wasn't always there, because I was a slick chick. I worked since age 13, so I kind of tried to have my own money. But when I went away to college, so I went off to Spelman College. I remember coming into my dorm, and I kid you not, I'm not exaggerating when I tell this story. One of my college dorm mates, her mother was well off. Her father was jet setting around the world. He was like a dignitary, where he would go and represent the state of Tennessee, where they were from, and he would be all in these different countries. Her mother was like a socialite, and they had money. She came in with luggage that was Louis Vuitton. I had never seen Louis Vuitton in my life. Didn't even I know if I was pronouncing Louis Vuitton correctly. They hired a boy in the neighborhood to come like be a slut boy for the week, carry around their bags when they went shopping, bring in her luggage to the room. And she sat there and was like, "This is my dorm. Mama, you're not leaving me to be in this." And then her mom went and got all this stuff from all the high-end stores to decorate her room. But my mom couldn't afford, when she dropped me off, she couldn't afford to stay for the entire week of Parents Week. She slept in the dorm room with me, head to toe, in my single twin size dorm bed. When she left, now this is how I say that she was ruthless. My mama was ruthless, because every time I had a job, she took a third of my paycheck, and I'd be like,
Oh, you frozen, Sonia.
"I'm 15. You want me to pay rent?" She's like, "Yes, you're gonna pay rent. You're gonna learn the responsibility of money."
Hmm.
When she left me my freshman year, she handed me an envelope. She said, "Don't open this envelope until you get back to your dorm." I opened the envelope. It was a letter she had written me. She said, "Read the." She had an envelope inside of the envelope. So the first envelope had the letter in it. Second envelope I opened after I read the letter, and it had a check in it and cash. And it was her attempt to give me back the money that she had taken from me, because her lesson was, I know as young people, you don't save the way I need you to. And I see the best in you. And I want you to have every opportunity. And I don't want you to go off to this college looking at other kids who got money and resources and stuff that you don't. I'm going to put this money aside for you. In her letter, she said, I only dipped into your money one time when it was a short month and we couldn't afford to pay all the bills. I dipped into your money, but here's your money. I want you to
Mm,
know that I just wasn't taking your money for the sake of taking your money. That was the biggest lesson to me. The
mm,
biggest lesson was, oh my goodness, my mother loved me enough to make sure that I was set up. I had scholarships, I had grants, I had, when I needed to apply for a loan, college was pretty much paid for. But
mm,
I was not going to have the extras. I got a job immediately getting there to Atlanta. This is the way of the world that I was. You have to earn a living. If you want
mhm,
extras, you get the, but do it legally. She saved that money and it showed me how much she loved me. And I
mm,
tell that story. I mean, that was the biggest lesson for me. We was poor, but this woman took a third of every paycheck that I got, didn't spend my money, integrity. The
mhm.
integrity. I mean, because think about that. Because some mamas would have been like, oh, I'm charging you because you got to be paid to live here. And they go out spending the money on whatever it
Yeah,
is that they need to spend the money on. But
yeah.
and she could have, like, legitimately, that could have been, I would not, I did not expect to get that envelope of love. And
Mm,
that's exactly what I considered it. And I wrote my mom a 10-page letter apologizing for all the times I was a little badass hellion that gave her all the back talk in the world because I was a smart mouth. And I apologized. And she went to church the next week and embarrassed the hell out of me and read my letter to the entire congregation. And when I came home at Christmas break, people was coming up, oh my God, you're so I was like, shoot, my mama would not tell you that I was a respectful child.
No, that's
Quite the
deep.
contrary.
That's deep. So yeah, that's deep. So everybody, thank you for joining the show today, man. But that's
Yes.
this is a good conversation, man. Like
Yeah.
all the systemic issues we got to deal with. How serious are we taking the parenting piece? Because it's difficult and it's no handbook on it. You know, you can read things and gather information
Yeah.
from different places, but it's a very difficult job, but it's a critical one. And
It's
sometimes
critical.
the 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 type of child you have, what they're involved in, what they enjoy, what kind of adult they are, you got to take accountability for it, good or bad. You got
Absolutely.
to look at yourself and say, okay, what did I do wrong?
Yeah.
Where was the missteps? Even when I wasn't trying to do shit wrong,
Yeah.
what did I do? Because this young person is exhibiting behavior that's not going to be beneficial in their life. You see what I'm saying? So, black family,
Absolutely.
do me a favor and take the parenting thing serious. Take it serious enough to teach it to your kids. So your young 16, 17-year-old daughter or son don't want to have a baby yet. Strictly for the
Right.
reasons of they know they need money. They know they need a
Right.
two-parent home. Like we need to quit being so frivolous with how we mate and procreate when
Yes.
it has a negative effect on our communities because we black in America. You feel me? So this is your brother
Absolutely.
Harrison. This has been another episode of the Melanated Convo podcast. Sonia, give everybody your Instagram.
My Instagram is ascribe a success, ASCRIBE success. And I just got to say this one more thing because we talked about it really quickly when we started Harrison. So I just got back from Atlanta celebrating my 30-year class reunion. If you don't know about, colleges and universities, there's something in the world called PWIs, predominantly white institutions. And then there are the historically black colleges, the HBCUs. Spelman is an HBCU. It was founded in 1881. And I have the pleasure, the honor, the just the love of being part of an incredible sisterhood that there are Spelman women all over the world that I can rely on and network on. And everywhere I go, everywhere, I promise you, there's a Spelman woman in a network that I can lean on. But I say this to say that that's an extension of family because that family there, it renewed me. It filled my cup in a way that I needed. I go back to reunion every 5 years. I'm very intentional about this being an important part of my legacy. It's unfortunate that I don't have a daughter to pass on that legacy to.
Oh, that's true.
I
Yeah.
I've said to myself over and over again, I just need one of my boys to become a Morehouse man so that I feel like my college experience made a difference. But I will also tell you, even if you attended an HBCU out there, ain't nothing like a Spelman Morehouse reunion. We partied, we reconnected, we remembered the times. Like we grew my year we're considered silver sisters because we've been 25 years out of college. But
Mm,
this was our 30-year reunion. They highlighted some of the things that we had to endure, and it causes us to reflect. Like our class, my freshman year, we endured the Anita Hill trial. So if you don't remember Anita Hill and
mm,
Judge Clarence Thomas was being nominated to become a Supreme Court judge, but he had done some foul shit. And we attended an all Black women's university. We watched, I can remember sitting up in our dorms. There were, we would go to our Manley Center, the big communities. It's like a community center on campus, and we will watch those trials together as Black women, as
mm,
inspiration of what this is the world that we are entering in. And that laid the foundation for the woman I am, and able to show up in spaces
mm,
and be like, look, yeah, I'm a woman, but I'm a Black woman, and you're not going to take me for granted. And I
mm,
realize that there's some things, some extra things that we are going to endure by being Black women. But so I wanted to say that because PWIs, my friends that go to PWIs, they don't have reunions like this. When you
mm,
go to a homecoming of an HBCU, they always say, the Black bands, they have this magnificent way about moving the crowd. I tell you that there is a family. So it make sure that your young people have access to these other things that will connect them to resources. This is where it starts. Everybody ain't got to go
mm.
to college. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying if you want to accentuate and uplift the Black lived experience, there's no place like a historically Black college or university where you can learn that firsthand. So that's
Mm.
what I want.
No, that's dope. And I was gonna bring that up earlier because that's just an interesting concept. Like anytime you can go somewhere where you got brothers and sisters who understand your experience, and everybody,
Yeah,
everybody just graduated. If you got kids that are about to go to college and you're a Black person in America, all the stuff we go through in our communities,
right.
you would want to look at a Black college too. Even if your kid may not
Absolutely.
end up going to one, but considering it should definitely be on the table. You feel me? So
Absolutely.
I'm your brother Harrison. My sister Sonia Williams Lewis. We back for another one, man. My Instagram is
Yeah.
Melanated Convo 100 is where you can find me on Instagram. Don't forget to go to Precision Create. Precision Create is the website where you can get this shirt, other shirts like it. There's information on there if you want to customize shirts on your own. I can help you with that. Go to the website. Thank everybody for I appreciate everybody who tunes into the
Yeah.
show. And when see me on the street or hit me in messages, I mean, I'm overwhelmed at times, but I appreciate all the love, family. This is your brother Harrison, Melanated Convo Podcast. Sonia Williams Lewis. We out.